Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the iconic Audemars Piguet, albeit in rose gold with blue dial. This is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 15202OR. You can see this slim, traditionally powered 39mm rose gold Royal Oak on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and you can click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch with additional accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 15202OR in rose gold. Now of course the watch you see here is the post 2012 version of the watch, a combination of sensational rose gold, really closer to red gold alloy, and the blue dial that's generally reserved for Audemars Piguet premier dealers and factory boutiques. It is a scintillating sight on any wrist, and even on my smaller wrist, it sits flat, flush, and fits well. It is physically secure on my wrist, and I believe that this 39mm case, that's 39 across from 9 to 3, not inclusive of the crown, could be worn easily on a wrist as small as 14.5 centimeters in circumference. That said, it does wear a little bit larger than a conventional 39mm round watch, and that's because it has a large, almost cushion form 70s inspired case, Gerald Genta's immortal 1972 design integrated lug and bracelet. So you wind up with a lug-to-lug measurement that's quite reasonable at 48.7mm, but when you realize that the bracelet can't be pulled straight down, it does flare a little bit. You get a measurement edge to edge from the rigidmost outer points that's a much more substantial 52.1mm, so keep that in mind. Think of this watch as a 41 and you get the general sense of how it would wear. You'll also note that the watch, all of a piece, almost appears more an article of jewelry than a watch, and that's no coincidence, as Gerald Genta, though known to watch enthusiasts as a watch designer, spent the vast majority of his career and his time designing jewelry, and right up to his death he considered himself to be a jewelry designer first and foremost, often not wearing a watch himself. Now the watch is substantial, and I have to emphasize this because various generations of the slimmest and most traditional Royal Oak sometimes felt almost delicate or fragile in the hand, and that's not the case here. But there has been no compromise in the quality of the finish. In some ways, you can only fully appreciate the finish of a Royal Oak when you see it in the less common full precious metal iterations. That's where the gleam of the gloss polished edges and the rich depth of the satin surfaces really comes out. And you'll note the level of the finish. From a hairline bevel at the center of the case, it flares out over the lug hoods, and then you can see the light tracing that polished bevel seamlessly aligned across the links down towards the clasp. Satin finish on the top. You'll also note as I move the clasp and the bracelet combination, you can see that there are actually polished edges to these individual plots. So there are polished surfaces that only become visible as the bracelet moves and flexes. On the underside, well, Audemars Piguet has been doing this for a while, so they've figured out how to make a substantial bracelet with enough gaps to aerate the wrist on a hot day and enough of a scallop between the individual links such that it doesn't pull up your hair or catch your skin. Very comfortable, sized with screws, Patek, that's how it should be on every expensive sports watch. You'll also note the interior of the clasp, nicely finished, blasted on its center, satin finished on its frame. It's substantial. It feels more like what you get today on the 15400 than some of the spindlier historic ultra-thin clasps, and being twin trigger actuated, it does have a level of security and peace of mind that you don't get with a friction fit or even a clamshell arrangement. Very secure. You do have to remember to close it sequentially. The AP closes second, just keep that in mind. The level of finish on the links is immense. As you can see, the detailing fantastic. No expense or time spared. It takes hours to finish these watches, and that's where a great deal of the added value of the watch is found. For many luxury watches, that'll be the finishing of the movement. For this watch, it's one part case, really, bracelet, and one part movement. They're equally the stars in terms of finish and manual execution. And you can see that continues on the case. Of course, the Royal Oak, so named after the Royal Navy, British Royal Navy battleship of the same name. So you have an octagonal bezel that emulates the form of the portholes on that prototype. You'll also note that the finishing continues seamlessly from the crease of the bezel down through the case back. So thoughtfully designed, perfectly executed. There is an immense amount of design continuity and coherence about this watch, with every part acting in concert with the others in composition rather than in isolation. Now you'll also note note that there's a hairline bezel gasket expressed between the case top and the bezel flank. On the offshore, the bezel gasket would be almost the size of the bezel of this Royal Oak. Here it's just a hairline accent, as Genta intended. Now the top is satin finished, the top of the bezel that is, with polished rounded edges, so you have a contrast both of surfacing, satin, and polish, as well as form, flat versus rounded. You'll also note that the dial, though it appears black from some angles, is a rich navy blue galvanized on a petite tapisserie. The tapisserie up till 2012 was made by Stern Frere. Originally, those sterns of Patek Philippe, latterly owned by the Richemont Company, a dial manufacturer that they own. And since 2012, Audemars Piguet has made this tapisserie dial in-house, but the methodology is the same. It's cut on a 19th century style pantograph engine. And so the production actually involves the hobnail pattern that you see here, but there is a second order detailing. There's a very subtle pebbly texture that runs between the hobnails as well as across their surfaces. So this is one of the few watches that truly deserves a loop to examine both dial and caseback. I'll also add that the galvanized blue dial has a high rejection rate, and therefore, due to its rarity, it's generally reserved for Audemars Piguet boutiques almost entirely today. A few years ago, marquee authorized dealers, independents, would have received this watch in small quantities. Today, this is pretty much an AP boutique special. You'll also note that the indices are rose gold, the hands at center are rose gold, and they're loomed. So yes, there will be a loom shot at the end of this video. A few quirks about the watch. Well, since 2012, the AP logo has been back at 6 o'clock. The date. It has a semi-quickset system, which means you turn the hour hand and the minute hand through midnight, back up to 10 o'clock, and you keep advancing forward and backwards to advance the date. All of this a product and a beautiful anachronism spawned by the caliber 2121. Now, let me see if I can get a little bit closer with my camera. A better lens and a better camera, both are coming, guys, so stay tuned and bear with me for now. 36 jewels automatic winding. It's unique because it was originally created by Jaeger-LeCoultre in 1968 for Vacheron Constantin, Audemars Piguet, and Patek Philippe. Each company had a variant of it. Audemars and Vacheron continued to use it, and it was never used by Jaeger-LeCoultre as part of the development agreement. All three companies, particularly Audemars Piguet, were involved in the initial engineering, and today Audemars Piguet makes and finishes this movement entirely in-house. So it's only Jaeger-LeCoultre in its design parentage dating back to the 60s. Today, everything you see here is AP. And truth be told, the system of winding is the visual highlight of the watch, but there's a micro level detail that I'll get into in a moment. First, let me explain the winding system. You have an engraved and hand-finished rotor skeletonized on an annular winding surface, so it is a full ring. You can see one half is gold, one half is just a bare metal ring, but it is a 360-degree rotor ring, and there are 4 ruby roller jewels among the 36 jewels in the movement, and those roller jewels support the entirety of the winding structure. That allows much of the mass to be sunken into the same plane as the bridges, allowing the system to be incredibly thin without any risk of an unsupported mass crashing into the bridges and causing damage or disfiguring surfaces. So it beats away at a quirky and now almost extinct beat rate of 19,800 vibrations per hour. You will note that it's a Gyromax style free-sprung balance, so it was a sophisticated movement circa 1968 with the Gyromax free-sprung architecture, better able to take and hold a tight regulation and then retain it in the face of bumps and disruptions on the wrist. Also very slim. While the basic version of this, the 2120 without a date, is under 3 millimeters thick. This movement, even with the date complication added, is still just 3.05 millimeters thick. Now, I mentioned that there was micro-level finishing that I wanted to highlight. Well, yes, there is. The work done on the bridges in particular, especially the edges which are beveled and properly hand-finished rounded mirror anglage, you will not find that on a 15400 or a 15450. There is a higher standard of finish that Audemars Piguet reserves for the jumbos movement that you see here, and this watch is nicknamed the Jumbo. The standard of finish is higher. On the rotor, on the bridges, you will see it, and it's tangible to the naked eye. You don't need a loop to appreciate it. So you are getting a higher standard of finish when you buy the iconic Jumbo. Anachronisms, a few. Though the watch is 50 meters water resistant, unlike the newer 15400, it doesn't have a screw-down crown. So while I consider the 15400 to be a hard 50 meters and swimmable, I would advise against swimming with this watch. Moreover, the watch doesn't have a conventional quickset. As mentioned, you have that back and forth semi-quickset through midnight to advance the date, and it doesn't have hacking seconds. So if you need to stop it precisely, and absent a seconds hand, I don't know why you would. Well, you can't quite do that. In every other respect, though, in terms of the history, the heritage, the beauty inside and out, as well as the rarity, if you're going to own an Audemars Piguet, and you're going to own only one, this is an excellent candidate to join your collection of monuments. This belongs right next to something like a Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 1A, and Rolex Submariner, Omega Speedmaster Professional, the icons of the industry. Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Tribute to 1931. This is that kind of a watch, but executed on a higher plane than almost all of them. True to history, one of the most influential designs ever. Stay tuned for a wonderful loom shot just to see how bright this star shines, even when the sun sets. Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 15202OR. You can't see that it's rose gold in the dark, but you can see that this pioneering luxury sports watch is surprisingly visible in the dark. Fully loomed, hours and minutes with all indices, the watch is actually recognizable as an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak even in the dark. As distinctive in the dark as it is in the day, you can see it by light on our website.